The dry suit where you just have to like have the thing, so you can just don't have to get up then, do you?
No, oh yeah, I've got a P valve, but the problem the problem I've got is I struggle with the cold. So I'm sure you're well aware as a young man what it's like when you get cold. We have a little bit of shyness. So quite often I get a few leaks, but we'll not go there. We'll move swiftly forward onto that.
Quickly onto that one for you.
Yeah. Hi, in this episode I'll be talking to Jake Davies about his work as a marine biologist. Over at BREW, Jake talks to me about his passion to make videos about the Welsh coastal marine environment using the Welsh language. Do you fancy a brew? How's it going, mate?
Then, how are you?
I'm alright.
I've been finally getting out to do some field work, so we're taking water samples for environmental DNA, so...
Cool.
It takes 10 minutes to take a water sample, takes an hour to filter. So I was like, still going at 5, I was like, is it going to make it in time? But finally, I got home in like 5 minutes ago, so...
Yeah,
time management there.
Oh, mate. Well, you've got your brew, and what's that on your shoulder? Looks like a parrot.
Yeah, it's a little dive buddy.
There's a lad lives on the corner who I know quite well through work, and he's got one. It's dead tame. He can walk outside his front door with it, and it won't fly off. Flies around the house and all that sort of stuff. And he went out the other day, and somebody scared it, and it flew off. He's got it back, but it's been gone a week. Lucky, isn't he?
Really lucky. Yeah, that's the thing, is it could be as tame as anything, but anything to spook it.
Yeah. So
just naturally behave.
What's it called, and what kind of parrot is it?
So she's called Lily, and she's a rose-fronted conure.
Right.
So, yeah, she gets involved with most things. So even with like starting out kit, she's there somewhere amongst it all. Different. It's something different, yeah.
All right, cool. Should we just crack on? Because it's just a chat, really, innit? So we'll just get on with it.
Yeah, no, exactly. As long as you got one of these.
Well, what are you on? What are you drinking? Are you on tea or coffee?
I'm on tea this evening.
Good lad. So, Jake, welcome to Fancy a Brew podcast.
Thanks for having me. We finally got there.
Finally, mate.
It's taken like a month to get there, but we got there. We found time.
But hopefully it'll be better and it'll be more worth it.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I know a little bit about you because I've been chatting to you for a while. I was introduced to you by Llyn, or Dr. Llyn, the shark scientist.
Okay. I've the intro.
Yeah, I've dived in the area that you're from, where you live, and all the rest of it. But maybe, just maybe, some of our audience, if I've got an audience at all, it's more than just you and my wife and my best mate.
Definitely got a good following now. It's grown incredibly quick.
It has. But maybe some of them won't know who you are or why I've got you on, because every now and again you just get somebody that you just want to have a chat with. But I think you've certainly got a few more things to chat about than just you go diving. So if you give us a bit of an intro, but don't give everything away, just a few little bullet points on that, and then we'll see what we can do, mate, with it.
Ideal. No, so yeah, I'm a marine biologist, an underwater videographer, and a HSE scuba diver, which I use for scientific and media purposes.
Right.
So in one, that's what it is, and that's what I do. And I'm fortunate that I can spend a lot of time underwater where I grew up as well. So here in the Llyn Peninsula. Mate,
it's pretty hard living there, and it's beautiful. If there's wind or rain or whatever coming in on one side, you can just nip over. It's a bit of a drive, I get that, but you can quite quickly, quicker than I can, be somewhere else where it's not so bad.
Yeah, and hopefully it doesn't do the traditional thing of the wind switching 180 degrees one day.
As you get there.
And then the next day, you're like, oh, we'll go there tomorrow. And it's switched again, it's moving right into that bay, and you're like, well, we're going to have to go to a quarry then, aren't we?
We did that when we started diving in 2016. We spent most of the summer in Ebooks. I'd bring the caravan down, which was a massive mission for us because it's probably a 2.5 hour drive at best, and with a caravan, it adds at least an hour. So we'd turn up, go into Ebooks water sports. The guy was amazing. He'd say, yeah, this is where you want to go today if you're snorkeling or you're surfing or whatever. So Hell's Mouth was our destination. You get there, the wind was blowing into the surf, so it was crap. So you'd nip over to Whistling Sands. It's a fair old drive, innit? You get there, and the wind would be blowing in there as well. You're like, this is shite.
I mean, from those directions, the next place I'd have told you to go was up to Porthdinllaen.
Mm-hmm.
And into the shallow bit there, and that would have been the next option for that direction.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a little village that backs onto a golf course that's just down a shady little track, and there's a load of seagrass beds and stuff, and there's a load of yachts and boats in that part there. I can't think for the life of me. Is it Port Carrier or something like that?
It was Porthdinllaen.
Right.
It's a great little dive.
Yeah. But we've never taken any of our scuba kit down. We've only ever snorkeled that sort of region.
You need to get along in the car and get a fob down there.
Yeah, that's what it is.
The shore edge, and then jump in the water from the car park.
Awesome.
That's where I set the longest dive, my personal record, which was the other week. Overall, we did 2.5 hours there.
Yeah.
We went in 11 o'clock at night as a night dive and came out something like 1:30 in the morning or something. It was worth it. It was awesome.
Is that where you saw the octopus that you posted on your Facebook?
There in the past, but yeah, the octopus that I got the other night was in Porthdinllaen,
right?
Just outside of Tudwelig on the north side. It was funny because we were like, we do this dive every week, and we're like, you know what, this week we're just going to go straight to the middle, and we'll see how far we can go before we kind of reach the end of the bay.
Yeah,
40 minutes got to the end, and like the sand ripples which go into the bay normally, that's fine. Get out the bay, it's gone like 45 degrees in the direction. You're like, okay, let's just remember this.
Yeah,
definitely not following that way into the bay, otherwise we were going to end up down the coast somewhere like Bardsey.
Wow.
Pretty quickly. It was interesting on the way back, this octopus, which the camera makes it look like massive, but actually
it does.
No bigger than my hand. It was tiny, really. But yeah, it's always good, and it's always quite funny when you see an octopus. They're really shy at the start. You give them 5 minutes to settle in, and then they come to you, and they almost like do the reaching out with their tentacle, just to like, touch your camera or touch your hand or something.
Well, that was something I touched on with Lauren, because she'd done some work with I think it was the One Show, and she said how they grab hold of your camera, won't let go, rip open the GoPro, and similar to that story, he said we were in it was in Malta, and it was inland sea. I think we swam through, and there was one in this little crack. So it's one of my biggest missions to get some interaction with an octopus, but on his terms, not mine. So I thought, I'll lie there, I'll get on the rocks on the bottom, I'll just lie really negative and just put my hand in front and just let it come out when it's ready. And as its tentacles coming out and being a little bit cautious, I get a tap on the shoulder. Come on, you're on a guided dive here. I'm like, oh, flipping heck. I could have stayed there for the entire dive, and they picked me up on the way back.
Yeah, I would have given time to get comfortable, and you'd have been there just trying to touch like one tentacle at a time and be like, I don't know, maybe.
He's ginger, so no, I'm staying here.
Hey. You're going to get me. No, they're great. They spend so much time with all of them.
Oh, you're lucky. I so much wish we lived so much closer. If I could move anywhere, because obviously I'm about 2 hours away from the middle of the Lake District and 2 hours away from the middle of North Wales. If I could move north or south, it would certainly be south, because you've got the best of everything. You've got inland lakes, you've got mountains, you've got beautiful mines, and then you've got the coast. Whereas go north, I haven't really got everything there. The coast is the big one for me. But anyway, so there's something you came up with on your intro that really interests me, but I didn't have it down on my little list of stuff to talk to you about. That's your HSE Scuba. The reason I want to ask about it is because I've got mine booked in. I'm doing it in November.
My question is, who are you doing it with?
Bristol
Channel. Yeah. Good.
So that came out of me asking a certain personality who'll remain nameless until he comes on my podcast, but he probably won't come on because he's been on everyone else's, and I like to keep it a little bit unique. But I asked his opinion, who should I go with, and he said Neil at Bristol Channel. I also asked his opinion on my Rebreather that I've just bought as well. So
I was almost going to chuck something later on about a Rebreather. I might pick your brain about it.
Right, let's do that in a bit. Yeah, so tell me about this HSE Pro Scuba, or Part 4 some people call it, don't they?
Part 4 was the original name, and then it changed to Pro Scuba now. So I did it back in 2017.
Right.
I was like, I want to do it. It's going to be good. So I did it down in Plymouth in Bovisand with all those commercial guys down there. So we had a great 2 weeks in January in Plymouth. And that was probably dead. It was
horrific. I heard
of being blind, just doing your hour, no torch, no computer, and that was it. But it was worth every second of it. It really makes you just feel so much more comfortable underwater. And the best part of it all was you got to use the Kirby band masks, so just sit there, get kitted up, and then get checked in and enjoy it. Yeah, and they're really cool masks to use, and they're so heavy, but just so warm for that time of year. You shouldn't have felt warm in January in that water, but
Well, see, I tried to earlier before COVID sort of kicked in for us. I had one of these, you know, where you can go for a dry dive in a chamber, and then you can go and try on all these different sort of commercial divers masks, even the really old 100-year-old ones. You can go and try them out in a swimming pool, which never came to fruition purely because we didn't have enough people. You needed like 16 to book the day, and we just couldn't get that in time for someone else to book it. But I'd much sooner do it as a real diver in a real scenario, like what you just talked about, than in a swimming pool where you then end up getting the same photograph as everybody else sat on top of the pool going.
Whereas you just get stuck in the proper gear and just
get in
the water. That's it.
So, did that lead you then to go and get yourself the full face mask that you're diving in?
Partly. I kind of used Guardians a few times, which are the other ones, and then Spectrum came out, and I was like, you know what? Spectrum looks really good. Like it's sound, and I saw the reviews about it, and it said it's like really comfy, and it kind of has that benefit and also negative side of you have your own reg in it.
Yeah,
and you can change it, but it works perfectly well. I've enjoyed using it, and at the moment we're filming a series. There's 3 of us filming this series, and I'm the only one using the Spectrum, and the other 2 are using Guardians.
Right.
But we still put comms in it. We still done it like it's full like HSE ready with a mask. So it's really nice to this mask, which is comfier than a Guardian because it's not got the hard plastic edges.
Yeah.
Can work perfectly well with audio and everything like that. So yeah, no, I've been really enjoying it. And yeah, I think it did lead on a bit more after doing it. It's like actually full face masks are a bit of a game changer, really.
Mm-hmm. For me, I get cold an awful lot in the water. So Northern Diver being on my doorstep, they have that mask.
That's where I got it from. A big thanks to them for it as well. Yeah. It really helped.
They have been dead helpful, to be fair, and I find them that way. You know, they're very keen to get on board with little projects that you're doing in order to help you publicise them.
They've got now a switching block for the full face mask type gear.
Have they?
So it's all independent, but all onto the same ones instead of having to do the traditional bailout where you pull up your mask, quickly look for your half mask, look for your reg and stick it in your mouth.
Yeah.
You can switch on a switching block, which we
that's quite good.
Yeah, so I need to go get one, really.
Well, I need to, like I said, I struggle with keeping warm, so would you suggest that it's more of your face is covered in water from the water? Yeah. So with it being more of it covered, you're going to be warmer in the winter?
Yeah, so with a nice thick hood as well, it's not too thick, but it really does keep your face a lot warmer.
All right. That's one for the list then. I'll write that on here. OTS mask. Done.
Another purchase, another cost.
Well, you know.
It's always that.
If I can make it pay, then it's worth getting in it. So I just keep it warm. Is a big deal for me. So do you have have you got your own comms unit in there then?
So I've got so one of the divers I was with, he's got the comms, so we've been just sticking them in.
Is this Kraken Productions that you're working with? Yeah,
so with Kraken and Ollie.
Yeah.
So they've got comms. Well, he's got comms, so when we're down there, we just stick comms in it.
Must be mega to be able to sort of communicate without trying to flash your torch and give them some weird hand signal that you're making up for a full blown conversation.
It is handy. It's just funny though because I've got it. I haven't got it, so I can't hear them. I've just got to listen to it. I've got it connected to a task cam, which basically records audio.
Yeah.
So I'm there. Those two can talk to each other when it works, and I'm there by myself. So all they can hear is just like me muttering on in the corner about something they've seen on a dive. But they're talking to each other, so I can't really hear what's going on. But you can get a unit that will mean that all 3 of us could talk to each other, but at the same time, then they'd also hear me chatting non-stop underwater about random things. No, I've been working with Crack and Lloyd. We're kind of doing this between 3 of us. We're kind of doing this online series about diving and marine life off the Welsh coast. Particularly, this kind of series is kind of doing 2 shore dives up in North Wales, 2 shore dives down in Pembrokeshire, which are kind of chosen because they're different. There's different species there, and they're quite unique. So it's all kind of like presenter-led underwater. And during the filming of it, we've got some really cool stuff and seen some really stuff that we didn't expect to get as well. So it's always good when you have a shopping list of them. We're going to get this species and this species. And then during a night dive, something random comes out and you're like, yes, I'm so glad we've got all these cameras in the water and the comms to get it. The filming we finished on Saturday and Sunday. we literally got a lot of water that day, and walked up from the dive site, sat there on a bench, dropped all the gear down, and just had a cream tea because we just couldn't do anything else. Awesome.
Mega. I love a good cream tea when I get out. It's got to be proper cream though, not out of that can where it used to be a kid squirting
it was thick clotted cream.
Oh, mate.
The whole thing and just stick it on there. Like, you kind of recovered quite well after that dive then.
I'm gonna text my missus now and say, yeah, while I'm doing this, just nip out and get some scones, will you? Some jam and some proper cream. Get amongst it.
It's going to be the new post-dive meal. It just has to be done. A cup of tea and a scone and thick clotted cream and jam. I'm sold. Yeah. That's it.
Oh, gleaming. Is that sort of where you want to go with regards to the scientific work you do? Do you want to be more media facing?
Most of the time I sit behind the camera or sit next to the cameraman as a media diver, but I think this time we're kind of doing it something different because I'm also like Welsh speaking.
Yeah.
A big part of it, we want to make sure it's in Welsh as well, so we thought that was really something that we could really jump on, so we all agreed we're going to do it in English, which also meant everything has to be done in Welsh too. And when it comes to edits, Ollie's going to have a great time trying to splice in the Welsh parts, so I feel like there's some edit part being chucked my way to get sure it's all right. But yeah, it was a good idea. We thought about it for a few years and we were like, you know what, this year we'll do it. We'll just get it.
I think certainly with my research, with my own YouTube channel, when you're watching, these other guys that show you how to make them, whether it be vidIQ or whoever, they're always saying you need to be quite niche at what you do because that way you'll hit a market that maybe there is a market for but isn't being hit, and then you'll pick up that subscriber and that following, and that's what we're all in it in some way to either make something from it, whether it be just a name for yourself or a bit of money or whatever. So by doing it in the Welsh language, clearly you're going to pick up that niche. Yeah,
just because like growing up and things, I always like wanted to make sure it stays like original in a way. That's what I was like passionate about doing it, making sure it is still what I knew when I was younger, and I still want to continue make sure that Welsh language is still going.
Yeah,
and it's keeping it in that younger generation as well. So
my brother-in-law, he's from South Wales. He lives just sort of west of Cardiff. I'm trying to think what it's called, Porthdinllaen, and and they don't speak Welsh at all. Is it more of a North Walian thing that?
Yeah, there are definitely pockets, and there's places in mid Wales as well. But like here on the Llyn and parts of like Carnarvon Way and Bangor Way and pockets of Anglesey still have it really strong. So like down the furthest west, down the Aberdaron Way, it's still really strong down there.
Yeah,
and it's good. It's really nice to still have that, and just like you can walk down and still hear Welsh in the village, and just randomly see someone from school and just break out into a Welsh conversation from an English conversation. It's always confusing people then. Like, how do you just quickly switch like that?
I know. Do you think in English or Welsh?
I think in English most of the time, but there's some things from school. So let's say, because I went through school up to year 10 where we had to speak Welsh, and there's some things when it comes to maths, like an equation, I'll have to do that in Welsh. And it'll just a way to remember it, I do it in Welsh. Yeah. I'm just like, oh, okay, that's fine. But yeah, there are a few random things like that will stick in my mind, it has to stay in Welsh, otherwise I can't figure it out.
That's crazy, isn't it?
But then you can just bounce between English and Welsh, like, no problem.
Mm-hmm. Odd one. Right, let's get back onto diving. I do have a massive interest in sharks, and that's kind of what introduced me to diving. Yeah. So seeing you've got the Angel Shark project. Now, it might or might not be anything to do with angel sharks, I don't know. But that angel sharks were my first shark. A, that I ever swam with, but B, that I ever had any sort of training or teaching on. So tell us a bit about it.
To be introduced to. Was that in the Canaries?
Yeah, it was, Fuerteventura.
Of course, it has to be there. Whereabouts?
Dive Deep Blue, which with them.
Know them.
And then basically done my BSAC Ocean Diver over here in the UK. 2 weeks later, we were on a plane with the army flying out to Fuerteventura. I'd only ever dived in like Eccleston Delph, horrible green, murky water, and then went straight out there and we're like, right, so we're going to sit here. Do you know Fernando Reis? He was one of my, he's a shark educational institution. He lived on La Gomera for quite a while, but he's Portuguese. And he runs some big conservation group out in the Canaries to do with angel sharks and all sharks really. But we did some training with him and got in the water and, measurements and photographs and all the sort of stuff that you would do as just a complete novice on sharks. Yes. But sitting there of an evening, seeing how they can attack and how they can camouflage and lay the fins down and stuff was so interesting. So we went out to Lanzarote in January this year and had a phenomenal encounter. with an angel shark there, where she was just laid at about 35 metres thereabouts in between these wrecks. Let me get right up to her, and I was just taking photographs right up, almost touching her snout. I was that close, and she didn't mind. And then as we swam off, she kind of did a bit of a follow round of us and swam past us. And my settings on my camera were just perfect, so I just went dink, dink, dink. Got a load of shots as she swam past, and probably the best encounter that I can think of since meeting my wife.
Saved yourself there. Yeah, no, they're pretty cool. Was that Playa Chica?
No, it wasn't. So it was
the old Tan Harbour.
Yeah, Porthdinllaen, yeah. And on them wrecks just off the wall, right in between.
Down to like 45 metres.
Something daft like that. So obviously I didn't have long, but it was a pretty. I wasn't even interested. I'm a bit of a wreckhead on the slide, but because I had my camera, I was like, I'm taking pictures here, and she was just laid there, didn't mind. My mate sort of was in the background on his rebreather, so making no noise. I'm really trying to calm myself and make no bubbles, and he sort of crept in, and I got loads of shots. I was so chuffed because it was like the first real chance I had to use my camera, knowing how to use the settings rather than just going on auto. So it was ace.
No, they are awesome. Yeah, I had a massive. When I was diving there in November, we were down at like 40 metres, and this massive rough-tail stingray came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, behind one of the wrecks, and she just kind of like glided like a spaceship past us.
Wow.
And she was like easy, like coming up to 2 metres wingspan on her.
Wow.
And she just came flying past, and I'm like, wow, she is huge. And then I quickly went back to 25 metres. Make sure I didn't stay down there too long.
Nah. So what's the crack with this angel shark project that you do?
Yeah, so I'm the project coordinator for that. It's a project that started back in 2018. So over the last 2 years, we've been working with community, citizen scientists, and fishers across Wales to gather like historic and recent records of angel sharks off the Welsh coast.
Right.
So it's been really good, really successful. We've had over like 2,000 records dating back to 1812. And yeah, it's just shown us a load of history and like shown that there are still angel sharks off the Welsh coast, and there's always been angel sharks off the Welsh coast. And that's one of the most important things. So we've kind of built up that evidence-based and baseline with the data. So it's been really cool. And yeah, it's nice to see that they are still in this area. Well, they are in this area because over the last 50 years in the whole of northeast Atlantic itself, their range has kind of declined. So like the Canaries is their main hotspot, so you're guaranteed to see them out there. And then there are a few places around the Med, and then Wales, then where we get records. We've had records over almost every year for a good couple of years now, so it's really good to see that. And there's a few caught in Ireland now and then. So that's what we're building on, is working together with loads of different people across the Welsh coast to just get that better understanding. So
how are they recording? Are people catching them as bycatch, or anglers?
They're caught accidentally. So they're illegal to be targeted because they're a protected species.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do, is if someone accidentally catches one, just drop us an email, drop us a message, and we've got a sightings back as well, and just say like, hey, we caught one, so this at location things, and it's all kept confidential. But yeah, it's been good, and it's really nice to see the engagement. And as part of the project, we've had loads of different elements, like working with communities.
Yeah.
Doing road shows across Wales, asking people to bring in photos, memories, and whatever they can about species.
No way.
Yeah, and we had 5 of those, and they were really, really successful. And then earlier this year, we launched an ebook for kids, like 7 to 11-year-olds, and it's like an interactive ebook where you can flick through, do some word searches, look for an angel shark buried in the sand, loads of different things like that. And yeah, that went down really well.
Wow.
So,
has anyone actually, as a diver, seen one?
There've been 1 or 2 back, talking 20, 30 years ago. But they have been seen. But yeah, as you know, what the conditions are like here, like the Welsh coast, trying to look for something that blends in as well with this no further than like your arm.
Yeah.
It's hard. But yeah, no, we did run a dive survey last year. We did the weekend. Conditions weren't the best, obviously, because you put a date in the diary, the weather sees it and says that weekend is going to be awful.
Yeah, well, that happened to us last week, didn't it? When we were supposed to go to Cable Bay.
Exactly. Yeah, I was really looking forward to that as well. I was like, yeah,
Well, to be fair,
smoothies, that'd been great.
yeah. Well, to be fair, plan B diving at Chirk Caverns was something else. It really was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have to do side mount for that? Or did you need a specific cable?
No. I would choose to dive side mount over back mount. Generally.
I've never done it. So.
Well, I did the course probably 2.5 years ago or something, and purely because I like the simplicity of it, the trim, and the position in the water, and being a bit of a wreck head. I can unclip both of them cylinders, put them in front of me, and get through something even tinier.
Yeah.
The opportunity to dive those kind of wrecks is very slim, certainly around here. But if it was ever to come across me, and I'm in that configuration, and now I'm more practiced in it, I'd say it's a bit more of a faff getting in the water, but in the water it's so much nicer. You can't help but have that sort of ironing board, flat trim, and you're much more streamlined. The cylinders sit kind of under your arms, so it's like you're as streamlined as you could be.
Yeah, no, the Chirk ones look good, and might be on my list now to do.
It's worth it. I mean, I'd just say if you haven't dived that kind of thing before, as long as there's plenty of people, you've got plenty of light, and obviously you've got the guy's permission to dive it.
Yeah,
you can't go wrong. There's one entrance that we initially went in that starts off dark, but you can see all the light coming in the cavern. Whereas if you'd have gone the other way, you're almost swimming into darkness to try and find that green window to swim out of. So we did do it the right way, in my view. There's an easier way of getting in the water, but you're then swimming into darkness rather than swimming into light, which makes...
I'd definitely take the light one, because at least that's the way.
Exactly. We took a line and tied off as soon as we went in, because we didn't... Although we had a schematic, which was really well drawn from another club. I think we're based in Liverpool. So we saw the depths, we saw the different parts, like the chambers and the entrances, and we'd obviously been round the route for half an hour to try and work out what was better. We worked out it was harder to get in where we did get in, but it would be better overall because you could swim towards that light, whether we had a line or not. So it was overall it was a cracking dive. And then say again?
Quite narrow.
No, not at all. It was. Imagine you went walking in an old slate mine that so you're up in the hills and there's a big cave, as we'd call it there, but that was then flooded with 18 meters of water. It's just that. So you could drive a car through. It was that big.
Okay, that's cool.
And what was even better is when we turned the lights off and your eyes adjust, there's just so much light and so much to see. So about 100 meters up the sort of rock face outside is virtually the same again, but not flooded. So it's kind of like you're walking through what you've just flown through, because the water's I've never known water that clear, mate, ever.
It's really clear there. Okay. Yeah. That seems like
it's definitely a get it on your list.
I suppose you can do it any time then as well.
Yeah, I mean the water was cold. It was as cold as we dived or snorkeled up in the lakes at the beginning of March, and the water was about 6 or 7 degrees, and this was the same because there's no real sunlight or movement of it to warm it up. But there is a lot of sediment on the bottom, so as long as you either stay off the bottom or are careful how you behave with your hands and your fins, it's gleaming. But honestly, a single 15 is enough. You could probably do it on a 12. It's a 20-minute dive at best.
To what depth?
16.5 meters, I think it was.
It's not that bad then.
Yeah, so if it's your thing to dive on a 12, a 12's fine. We just went in with the mentality. We're both soloists anyway. We went in together as a buddy pair, geared up to solo dive.
Yeah, which is the best way to do when you come to one of those.
Exactly, because if something had gone wrong, you can pretty much self-rescue. But the thing is, you've got to remember, just because it's dark, there is a surface. So it's not. It just appears that you're encapsulated, but you're not, because you could just ascend.
Okay. I thought there was like parts of where it was like proper.
Well, there's an overhang, but if you were just to ascend and then follow that up, you'd come to the surface. So there was no way. There's no tunnels or chambers off it that you could get lost. So it was as safe as anywhere really, other than the fact it's just really dark. But anyway, that's enough of my stuff. Let's talk about yours. That's why you're on. But it is ace, mate. So one thing that sort of interests me, because I struggle with it, is you've just done your drone course over lockdown period, haven't you?
Yeah. So I used the lockdown as a progression thing, because I wanted to do it this year. I was like, I'm going to do it sometime this year. Might do it at the end when I have a bit more time. But I was like, no, lockdown, it's online. I can do it. So I just booked it, did it. You can do it all online, and then it meant there was one practical part, which meant I did have to drive the whole way to Newcastle for about 30 minutes.
Jesus.
Which is, it's about 3.5. No, it must be about 3.5 hours to get over to Newcastle to do it 30 minutes for another 3.5 hours back.
Wow.
Felt a bit painful, but it meant I didn't have to do like a whole weekend ground school. I could do it all online. Yeah, it was so worth it. And also, because it was so quiet during lockdown, I could fly the drone and not worry about getting in the way of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just take it down to the beach. No one on the beaches and just doing it.
Ace. The reason I asked is I'm now on my 3rd drone this year.
I mean, you've actually crashed 3 drones.
So one, we went doing a recce up near Lancaster of a river. And like literally, when you buy a drone and you open up this is how you work your drone, short of how to build it. Number one, don't fly in wind. So I took it off and flying it in wind like an idiot. And the wind, this gust of wind caught it and nearly put it in the water. So I just went, flew it up, and it got caught in a tree that was too high. It was too high and too bendy for me to get in that tree. And if I would have got to where I needed to be, it was over like concrete and then water. So I thought, at best, I'm going to fall out, land, break both legs and my skull, and then fall in the water. So I decided against it. And then more recently, that got left. I've been back and dived there since, but it wasn't in the river. I found a shotgun. Yeah, some kids got it somewhere, and then, so our last time we went to Cable Bay, so like a month or so ago, you're not allowed to fly there. I've now found out, although I have flown and there was no issues, because it's right near RAF Valley, you're not allowed to fly. So I've set it off, and it says weak GPS signal, so it's just hovered at 10 foot, caught the GPS, so I've then flown it out to sea to do whatever recording I'm doing, and then it's obviously pinged up where it is and gone, emergency landing, and I'm like, I can't counteract that, so it's just landed in the water. So it came yesterday. It's here. I just got my I've got my DJI back, but it's brand new, so it's not salt ruined. So yeah, I'm on my 3rd one, mate. I'm debating whether to do this course. So talk me into it. Do I need to?
It's good. If you like air law, perfect. There's a big chunk of air law you got to learn and all the regulations, but yeah, it gives you that opportunity. If you get some really cool footage, at least you can sell it and make your money back from all the drones that you've lost.
Yeah.
But I think regulations are changing later this year. They were supposed to change in June. Again, they might not go ahead of December. There's going to be changing the way they categorise drones and things. So it's worth having a look. Depends on the drone you fly. So if you think you fly a Mavic Air, a small drone, you're kind of in this open group. And then there's a few classes. So obviously when you get to the big DJIs at a couple of kilos, you're going to need the course. But for some of the smaller ones, you might not need it now. Right. So it might be different. But again, the small ones all record in 4K, don't they? So it's more than enough what you need. You don't need to go and get like the brand new Mavic Air 2.
No, but certainly for me, for my use, perhaps, for the amount I need it versus, I mean, I've seen that the sort of price of the course, including a drone, was quite considerable.
It's quite hefty. I mean, it's probably like it's half of HSE Pro course. So weighing up, isn't it? It's doing the step.
Absolutely.
You take that step to do it, and that's where I'm sat with the Rebreather stuff. I'm at the step of, do I do it? And I'm thinking, is it worth it? And I'm I don't know. I need people to be like, yes, no, maybe, it's definitely worth considering it.
that's where I've perhaps been lucky then to be hosting this podcast and speak to all the different people that I do that are on them and using them. So use that as a forum to answer that question. Now, obviously, we're talking about the HSE Pro Scuba, and you know, in the route I want to go on, whether it be in front of, certainly I'm not qualified to be behind the camera, but I mean behind it as a support role, you know, whether it be a supervisor or something like that. Speaking to the right kind of people that use them, you know, in front of a camera or whatever, it sounds the better option because it's quieter, so more marine life comes in. You know, you breathe in a higher partial pressure of O2, so you're going to be clearer head, you're going to be less fatigued. And then if you are going on the deeper stuff, it's cheaper when you come on to Trimit. I've already made that progression and used to, you know, built up the hours on that rebreather. And I'm lucky I came into a bit of money this year. You know, unfortunately, my granddad passed away last year. He left me a bit of money, which covers most of the costs, not all. So I can kind of make that jump logically going, well, if I get it now, if I ever get any of that work, I'm already well used on it, rather than if you got a job tomorrow and said, you need to be CCR trained, mate, well, you've got to buy one with a 6 weeks wait to order it because there's no O2 sensors anywhere because they're all going to ventilators. Then you've got to get on a training course. Well, mine's just been put back another week now because of COVID lockdown measures. So, and you've got to find 10 grand. So it kind of, for me, it made sense, sort of future proofing where I want to go.
Yeah, you got the kit, you got the time.
Yeah.
And it's heading in the right direction then, isn't it?
Yeah.
What unit did you went to the JJ?
Yeah, I went for the JJ. Initially, so at the Go Dive 2020 dive show in Coventry in February, I bumped into some friends of ours from Malta, Viv and Alan, who run TechWise and DiveWise. Diving them a couple of times now. And they had a JJ there. I'm not going to lie, I found it quite attractive, almost as attractive as my wife. So I was automatically like turned on by this machine thinking, that looks a cool piece of kit, but do I need it now? No, I don't. And it's just been one of them that's burning at the back of my mind going, should I, shouldn't I, do I, don't I? But there's no diving I'm doing that would stop me using it. Perhaps the cable bay stuff in 5 meters of water.
Yeah, it's not so worth it. It's worth the time. But so
is
it, would you say below 10 meters you do get your money's worth?
Well, I wouldn't say your money's worth.
Relatively, compared to an open circuit, 12 meter, 15 meter.
It warrants using it because I can stay at that depth for longer and so on. But obviously, you still need to be open circuit. You still need to have that bailout, don't you? So I'm certainly not a subject matter expert on a rebreather, but from all the interviews I've done, the conversations I've had, and where I would like to go in respect of the kind of diving I like to do and want to do, even just for photography, it makes perfect sense.
That'd be the same for me with videography.
Exactly.
The time you can spend with like one creature, you can be there for 10 minutes and like you're getting really comfortable, but every time you blow that bubble, they're backwards like 2 steps, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, whereas if you're on a unit, they'd be like, it's not so scary. There's no bubbles here, and they'll come a bit closer, and you get that shot or that more natural behaviour.
I mean, I suppose it depends how you're looking at it. If you're looking at it for value for money, the only way it's going to pay you back is if you're doing deeper trimix type dives. Yeah. If you're looking at it, if you're looking at it for ease of doing videos and photographic work, then it's definitely up there. But it's not perhaps going to pay you back, other than the fact that you're quieter, so you might get better photos and better videos because there's more stuff. So it's kind of just weighing up that balance for you, isn't it? And I'm sure there's cheaper units out there, and I'm sure there's perhaps more expensive ones, but it was one I liked. When I found out what it does and how it works and what I do and don't need from it, it still was ticking all the boxes. So
just go for it. It's right, isn't it?
Well, yeah. And what I don't like is when I first learned to dive, people were talking about the AP ones, you know, they were calling it the yellow box of death. Yeah. And obviously people are slightly ignorant to how much they've come forward now, in the rebreathers and that. Yeah. So to label it that, it's just perhaps out of ignorance, I'd say. Yeah, because I've been looking at AP, because AP is kind of like one of those industry standard ones, in a way. But yeah, it's slightly different to the JJ then, isn't it? They've all got their own. In sort of layman's terms, without getting too technical, because I don't really know enough about it to get technical, I dive a backplate, wing and harness with my twin set or single mounted back cylinder. Yeah. Whereas I don't use a BCD, don't use the AP's Buddy Commando. So if you dive with using an AP Buddy Commando, putting an AP Inspiration on your back, it's basically in an AP Buddy Commando mounted on the back of that. So it's the same. Whereas the JJ, someone will probably tell me I'm wrong here, but this is my understanding. One of the blokes who was responsible for, or used to work at AP and help design one of the APs, he then went off and created the JJ. So it's evolved from that, perhaps got different or better, argumentally better parts to it, but it's on a backplate wing and harness.
It's just more your style then, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's just the same, isn't it, in some respects? So that was the box that it was ticked for me, because it was just like you said, exactly what I dive.
When it comes to diving, everyone's different. Everyone's got their own config then.
That's kind of why I went on to long hose, rather than having an octopus, because if I dive twin set, single, side mount, what you see on my front is the same configuration. The only change is when it's side mount is my inflator hose comes across my chest rather than over my shoulder, because it kind of comes from behind. But other than that, for you as my buddy, my primary and secondary second stage regulators are in the same place. You take my long hose off me exactly the same way. So as a buddy, it's better for you that I'm the same sort of
stuff. The diving with you, like day in, day out, you don't have to go, right, today I'm diving this rig, this config, but tomorrow I'll be diving this config. It's like the same.
And then you go, I forgot that clip to put my octo on or whatever, So I like that sort of regimented structure, routine. It works.
We're starting to forget something. It always happens, no matter how organised you can be.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back on to you. We're still talking about me. I know you wanted to know about a rebreather, but that's kind of
a question though. It did work.
So Project Seagrass. The reason I wanted to ask about this is, as we talked about before, we went up along your sort of on the north. Look, I'm just looking at the map now, like the northwest shore, where there was all this seagrass. We got told by the guy at Ebooks Water Sports, the seagrass beds up there, and you might see a seahorse. Not seen one yet.
Keep looking. It might be your phone one as well. So we worked with Project Seagrass over the last few years, where we've done like surveys there, do both shore surveys and we've done dive surveys, which have been really fun. And this year I helped them again doing their seagrass collection. So they've got a massive project down in Pembrokeshire where they're collecting loads of seagrass seeds from up here in Porthdinllaen. They've got Isles of Scilly, Scotland, loads of different places, and they're kind of restoring a bed down there.
All right.
Which is a really cool, nice diving project for volunteers who get involved as well. So, it's been really good. It's also just raising awareness, because seagrass is a pretty important habitat for loads of different reasons. One example is nursery for like commercial fish species or oxygen and things. But it's also a great dive because it's almost like tropical. Especially when it's a really clear day, you've got like really nice blue water, because seagrass also helps get rid of that particulate.
Yeah.
So then you've got this really green seagrass with it, and it's like tropical for a change, except for the fact you're in 3-4 meters of water and you can almost stand up sometimes. It's great. It's this one here on Porthdinllaen, we're fortunate, it's like one of the densest, one of the biggest we have in Wales as well. But no seahorse there, so there have been historic potential ones, and there's been no proper verified ones there. So it's Porthdinllaen Bay is the main one if you're going to find a seahorse, but they're protected down there as well.
All right. What does that protection mean? Like you can't dive on them, or you can't touch them, or you can't take them home and put them in a key ring?
That one.
Good.
They're protected that way, as an individual, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's I don't know if you need permission to actually dive there, but you definitely need permission if you go in there looking for them type thing.
All right. The videos that you're making on YouTube then, how's that going?
It's good. It's kind of like a winter project, I think. Every winter, kind of like November onwards, I actually have time to open up the hard drive and see what's actually been filmed this summer.
Yeah.
It's just continuous. I think I've got like 4 hard drives just stacked up. Then I'll just go through them again and see what different combinations can be done. Usually really nice ones are just the specific areas or specific species, and at the end of the year then bring it all together as one big video just off like Penllyn and just show people what we get that summer. Because this year, again, fortunate to get some species and things that I haven't seen in the past, so every year's a different year. Some really nice stuff, and it's been good.
Looking through your Facebook anyway, it seems you've had quite a few jobs in this sort of marine sort of biologist and come conservationist and doing your videos and stuff, but come on, spill the beans.
So I did that one. It was like during the summer, it was like a summer job. Right. So basically on the beach. Actually, a lot of it was involved with the seagrass work, so it was down there, but we also had like a little museum on the beach. This is the Porthdinllaen one with the pub. So we basically talking to people about the area. I made some videos to put on the screen so they could see what it's like below the seagrass. And just a lot of just talking and telling people what's in that area. And then the coastal one, the Untitled one, was actually my placement year in university. So between second and third year, I was fortunate to get that placement year with Natural Resources Wales, where I helped teams do different surveys intertidally. We also did subtidal ones as well, again, more like monitoring seagrass and cockle beds and all these different things that help develop skills and monitoring and things. But yeah, it gave me loads of different variety and some really cool things during those times. So yeah, it's been nice to have a bit of different subtidal, intertidal, ship work, rocky shore work. It's been good.
Is there much that you're involved in that sort of a layperson like myself, that just is, massively interested in it, but not necessarily an academic in or qualified in? Like volunteer programs and stuff that we could get in?
Yeah. Even for diving, they've got SeaSearch, which is like a volunteer organisation. So when you go for a dive, you fill out this little form. There's an observer level, which is like the beginner level, and there's a surveyor level that goes into more detail. But it's like a small form. You describe you fill out your dive location. So Cable Bay, you put in that long. You open it up, you make a quick diagram of what the site was like. So if it changes from sand to boulders to hard rock.
Yeah.
And then in there, you just put a few arrows, like under this massive boulder, we had some 4 lobsters or something.
Yeah.
And it just gives you a really nice, quick description of the dive site. And it's interesting because you can go back to common dive sites. I think there's quite a few in Anglesey that regularly surveyed.
Yeah.
It means you can go back over 10, 15 years or when it started and see how things changed. So some years there might be, like you said, more lobsters, but then a year after that, less lobsters, and there might be a pattern that can come out of it. So that's a really good volunteer opportunity for divers to get involved with. And then like Project Seagrass has like volunteer opportunities for intertidal monitoring and things like that. So there's always little things to get involved with.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Certainly on a personal level, if it wasn't anything at all to do with what I do on YouTube and Instagram and even my podcast, I like getting interested in things like that. Much like that basking shark research tip we were on last week that we didn't see one basking shark on. But here's one for you then. This is something I looked at. I came across it earlier on. It was to do with Shark Week that Discovery do.
Yeah.
I mean, the clips I've seen on YouTube, they seem to be quite stunt related.
Like
throwing Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson has a fight with a shark, and all this kind of stuff. And
so like a massive drama behind it all, isn't it? It's how it's done.
And obviously, a mate of mine who I interviewed a few weeks ago, he was on Shark Week, James Glancy, so he did a couple of stunts for that, which were really interesting. But the question was, it was from the makers or producers of Shark Week, and they were saying they've had a lot of feedback that people want to see more science than stunts. What do you reckon? I mean, do you watch it? Have you any?
I've seen parts of it. I've seen a few. Obviously, it's probably quite nice to have a bit of both, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
things like that. But I had footage featured on it last year. I think I've yet to see the episode.
Really?
From Shark Week, which is actually quite a highlight. But yeah, no, it's. I think it has got some really good scientific elements with it all first and things. But yeah, there's still a big part of the drama behind it. That's kind of what they want, isn't it?
Mm. And I think it's good because there's a lot of things like David Attenborough shows. Paul Rose does a lot on the telly. There's lots of people that are doing lots of the scientific stuff. As long as the stunts aren't detrimental to the animal, I think it's fair to have a bit of a 50-50 mix on Shark Week. Yeah,
it's kind of like a bit more of the entertainment, but also still saying the story. But also
absolutely
in the middle, making sure the sharks aren't portrayed as these horrendous killers.
Yeah, 100%.
You're more likely to trip down the stairs.
Yeah.
Than get bitten by any shark in the world. So yeah.
I think my argument with why the stunts are good, it probably would bring an audience that wouldn't sit there and watch a scientific program. Yeah,
100%. Like it's a completely different clientele, really, isn't it? When you go watch it rather than like a science-based one.
Yeah, I mean, I saw. I think was it Will Smith and Shaq and a few others. They were all getting in. They were all like, it was almost like a boxing fight. They were proper psyching themselves up, going, flipping heck, I'm dead nervous. And they got in after a bit of teaching and thought about what's going on. And actually realised just how intelligent and probably uninterested they are in us being in the water to some end, aren't they?
Yeah. So that's one I did watch. I did watch the Will Smith one. It was quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to go, they went diving then in the Med, from completely different places. This is really randomly spaced out, this program. But yeah, it's quite good.
I think that sort of teaching, though, is showing that actually they're not interested. Perhaps wouldn't come across in your Blue Planet, where it's a narrated thing and going, oh, this is the 6-gill shark and it's 9,000 years old and blah, 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 which is a nice thing to learn, but doesn't really sell the shark in a non-Jaws capacity. Whereas if Will Smith's in there going, wee, and the shark's just not interested in him at all.
It shows it straight away.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
people will watch that program because
I see that you and your girlfriend, the fact that she's a fitness instructor, you're a young fit lad, clearly on I think it's her YouTube, there's a picture of you there with your guns out and all your belly hanging out, looking fit as a fiddle. You show off. How important would you suggest that fitness is to diving?
I think personally it's like I like to keep fit. It's always been the way for many reasons. It used to be like GB sailing, and it's kind of been in my mentality to stay fit, and it's been there. But for diving, it makes a difference. Like, I mean, the kit doesn't get any lighter no matter how many weights you lift or how many kilos of deadlifting or whatever you do. Yeah. Definitely stay heavy. But I think it's important because it's a lot of pressure on your body, isn't there, when you're diving? When you're spinning along and you're against the current, you kind of hopefully your lung capacity is enough to get you through that spell of current. Yeah. But yeah, it's just the physiology of your body and also mentality. It's always good to stay.
I listened to another podcast a couple of days ago. I've been listening to it on and off for the last 2 years. It's Steve Davies. He does the Speaking Side out of New Zealand, and he was interviewing a guy called Steve Bogarts, who's from the UK but lives out in Mexico. And he's done, literally for the last 30 years, he's been a professional diver cum dive instructor. So a lot of long, deep, technical dives. For the last 12 months, on very simple sort of conservative dives, he's got bent. And each bend has become progressively worse. Although he's a fit guy, he's like in his 50s, I think now. He was talking about how each dive, certainly the more technical type ones he's doing, it must cause some kind of injury because he's not got a PFO. He's not got anything that should cause him to get bent. He hadn't done anything on them dives either. And he's had to retire now from diving because he thinks this massive career he's had has slowly chipped away at parts of his body that have become more and more damaged, much like a footballer. You don't see a 40-year-old footballer, do you?
It's like little things that always add up. But especially in the deep dives, it does add up after, because it is a big toll on your body when you're doing those big...
Well, our physiology was not geared up to be breathing those partial pressures of oxygen, being under those masses of pressure for hours at a time. So for me, I find it hard to keep fit without getting injured or aching, for days to the point that I'm almost limping. I mean, I don't kill myself. I do these sort of HIIT training classes, boot camp style. Just go a couple of nights a week till I'm sweating cobs, blowing out my backside, and feel the benefit of it. I get the endorphin rush on the way home. I'm starving. I sleep really well. My VO2 max is at a level that I can pass an HSE medical. I don't have a big BMI. My waist is comfortably where it should be at about 40 years old.
Everyone's slightly different. And it's just keeping the fitness, I think, is...
What kind of training do you do?
Mostly weighted with a few hits chucked in there when I get told to go and do a hit class.
So come on then, what's next? What have you got coming up that you can tell me about?
Depends when this is out, but 30th of September is a one show. So I'm on the one show doing something related with sharks.
Ace.
And representing Wales. So that'll probably be enough to say.
Most of the flipping presenters are Welsh anyway. So no wonder you've got on.
When I got the call, I was like, it's going to be like an all Welsh one show this time, isn't it?
Yes.
Alex or someone else won't be there, so it won't go full.
Oh, good. How did they come across you?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the one show came across. I just got a phone call last October saying, hey, would you be interested in this type of thing? I was like, tell me more and I will about it.
Hey, sweet. Well, thanks for coming on, mate. Appreciate your time. Are you going having your dinner now? As you put it on?
Got dinner, yeah.
Hey,
we're getting trouble now. It's gone cold now. I've been sat there for half an hour for you.
Tell us, Oz. I'm sorry. Hey, mate.
Parrot starting nagging in my ear in a minute.
Oh, mate. Oh, well. Be alright.
Yeah, anytime you're this way or...
Definitely, mate.
Yeah, no, 100%. Anytime.
Mate. Right, mate. Go and get your dinner. I'll see you later. Thanks for your time.
No, thank you.
So that brings us to an end of episode 30 with my friend Jake Davies. Links to all the things we discussed are in the podcast notes. You've been listening to Are You a Scuba Diver Fancy a Brew podcast with me, Andy the Northern Diver. You can find more scuba related content on my YouTube channel. The link is in the podcast notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. And if there's someone or something you'd like us to discuss, let us know via our Facebook page. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.